At 12 years old, Francis Ngannou was working in the sand mines of Cameroon. It was backbreaking, dangerous, and paid almost nothing. He risked his life crossing the Mediterranean just for a chance at a better life. He eventually became the UFC heavyweight champion, the baddest man on the planet. But in 2023, he did something no one expected. He walked away from millions of dollars. Why? Because Francis realized that even at the top of the UFC, he was still just working in a different kind of mine. One where the walls weren't made of sand, but of legal fine print. While Dana White is gambling $100,000 on a single hand of blackjack, and the UFC is signing billion-dollar deals with Disney, the people actually bleeding for your entertainment are often one injury away from homelessness. But this isn't just about low pay. This is a story about a system that has been characterized in federal court as so tightly controlled and anti-competitive that critics argue it functions as a monopoly. This is the dark side of the UFC, and once you see the math, you can never watch a fight the same way again. To understand the UFC, you have to understand the alleged independent contractor misclassification. In most industries, an independent contractor has power. If you're a freelance coder, you work for Google today and Apple tomorrow. But court documents suggest the UFC wants the control of an employer without the responsibility of one. Think about this. The UFC dictates when you fight, who you fight, what you wear, and even restricts what you can say on social media. They track your location for drug testing 365 days a year. But the moment you get a brain injury, you're on your own. No pension, no long-term health care, no 401k. As critics put it, you are a partner when they want to control you, and a stranger when you need help. And if you try to leave, that's when the gilded cage locks. The UFC uses sunset clauses and exclusive negotiating windows that plaintiffs in the antitrust lawsuit claim effectively trap a fighter for years. They don't just own your skills, they own your time. How did it get this bad? Critics argue the UFC did something brilliant and terrifying. They killed the market. In the 2000s, MMA was a Wild West. There were other places to go: Pride in Japan, Strikeforce in San Jose. If the UFC lowballed you, you walked. So the UFC began a campaign of aggressive acquisition. They didn't just buy the competition to grow. It is alleged they bought them to bury them. They bought Pride and let it rot. They bought Strikeforce and absorbed the talent. This created what economists in the 2025 lawsuits call a monopsony, a market with only one buyer. If you want to be the best in the world, you must sign their contract. And when there's only one buyer, the buyer sets the price. This is why fighter pay has stayed at an estimated 13% for over a decade, while the company's value went from $2 million to $12 billion. But don't take my word for it. Look at the $375 million settlement approved in February 2025. We now have the internal emails. In these documents, executives aren't just talking about growing the sport. They're talking about crushing rivals and keeping the fighters in line. The court documents reveal allegations that the UFC specifically targeted leverage. The argument is they want fighters to be just wealthy enough to train, but just broke enough to be desperate. Because a desperate fighter says yes to a short notice fight for a fraction of what they're worth. They've spent millions lobbying Congress to ensure the Ali Act, the law that gives boxers rights, never touches MMA. To many observers, they aren't just playing the game. They are rigging the board. The real tragedy isn't the billionaire in the suit. It's the legend in the hospital. We see guys like Tony Ferguson or Jose Aldo, men who built this empire, fighting long past their prime because they feel they have to. There is no retirement in the UFC. There is only used up. When Francis Ngannou walked away, he wasn't just asking for money. He was asking for health insurance. He was asking for the right to have a sponsor on his shorts. He was asking to be treated like a human being. The UFC's response? They stripped his title and some say tried to erase his legacy. Because in this system, the moment you ask for a seat at the table, they kick you out of the house. The next time you see a fight of the night bonus, remember, some argue that $50K bonus is a bribe to keep them from asking for a fair share of the $100 million gate. The cage isn't just for the fighters. The cage is the business model.